Welcome to Stadium BS. For more information, check out www.castellonms.com.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are around the world. This is Frankie Castellon. I am the host of Stadium BS, your one-stop shop for me, talking about the business of sports and what I dislike about it and what I like about it from a fan's point of view. Take a look at my website, www.castellonms.com. That is CASTELLONMS.com. Has everything Frankie, including the kitchen sink and my hair follicles. I have Stadium BS merch. I have Castellon Motivational Standard merch, my brand. eBay, Etsy, Mercari, Poshmark, all have different items at reasonable prices. Hey, I will hook you up with a deal. No worries. There's also a survey if you want to be a guest on the show. If you have a great idea and want a free hat, go for it. Take the survey. I don't mind hearing brand new ideas. Eventually, I will get to the Tinker Field presentation. I'm getting a little help from that in the long run, but I have a couple of great guests that I'm going to be talking to. Actually, three. One you're going to be hearing now, and then I got two others coming along the pipeline within the next couple of weeks. But I want to address something that I've noticed, and I don't know if you notice and whatnot. Excuse me. When I listen to... Now, you are aware that I have ads on pretty much any podcast platform you have. Okay? I enabled that. You know, if you don't like the ads, I'm sorry. If you want to help the show, $5 or more, there's a support Frankie on CastellonMS.com. But for right now, I put ads. And I did the prediction marketing episode, and I noticed what's funny is I don't pick the sponsors that do the ads on the podcast. And one of them came out was Kalshi. Now, I've explained before what Kalshi is, what Polymarket is. They're prediction marketing, soon to be giants, and they're taking the world by storm by predicting pretty much everything. Apparently, what the funny part is that Kalshi was advertising on that particular episode where I'm saying, get help. You shouldn't be doing this prediction marketing. Me saying no, me not condoning prediction marketing, but yet the Kalshi ad pops up. So I wanted to let you know I updated the ad settings on it, and I do apologize. I didn't realize that it was going to pop out of nowhere because I have no control over it. Only thing I have control of is what kinds of ads not to put up. And I didn't realize that there was a function towards that. So I fixed it. Hopefully you'll have better ads on the site. And if you don't want ads, help a brother out. Merch, support Frankie, any little bit helps. I don't mind hearing your feedback as well. And if you can't afford it, then take the survey. Maybe you'll get yourself a free hat. I do have a sponsor before I go into Jim from the Orlando Dreamers. The sponsor is Molly B's. Molly B's Gourmet Cookies bring creative, unique cookies straight to your pantry. No cookie shop required. With bold, unforgettable flavors. The ultimate treat for any occasion. They are the ultimate treat for any occasion. Enjoy an exclusive discount with my promo code to mollybees.com, which is All one word, Stadium BS. That is your promo code for 10% off any item on the site. That is 10% off any item by using my promo code Stadium BS. Now, without further ado, let me bring Jim from the Orlando Dreamers on the podcast and giving you some insight of what they're pursuing in an MLB franchise. I hope you enjoy. Take care. God bless. And I'll see you on the next one. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are around the world. This is Frankie Castellon, the host of Stadium BS, www.castellonms.com. Everything is selling, including the kitchen sink and my hair follicles. I have a special guest with me today, and I'm very, very happy to have him on the show. And I've been talking about Orlando and expansion through it all, especially with the Ray saga and expansion proposals and realignment. I talked about it all, and I'm happy to bring him on the show. I have Mr. Jim Schnorf.
Yes.
Okay, so Jim Schnorf of the Orlando Dreamers. And if you don't know who the Orlando Dreamers are, they are an organization and initiative to bring Major League Baseball to Orlando, mainly as an expansion team, and they have a lot of potential. And I want to discuss this further. Jim, how are you?
I'm doing terrific, Frankie. We so appreciate you letting us be on your show.
No, actually, the appreciation is all mine. This is a wonderful, wonderful experience to have you on the show, and my many other guests. It's always been a pleasure. Absolutely. So to get started, if anyone doesn't know about the Orlando Dreamers, tell me who you guys are and what have you been doing with the community.
Well, Pat Williams, the founder of the Orlando Magic, was a dear, longtime friend of mine. I was actually a partner in my other company. And Pat announced his retirement from the Orlando Magic. Gee, I'm going back more than 6.5 years.
Mm.
Plans to focus on his museum with all his unique sports memorabilia and his 30,000 plus books that he had read. You know,
Wow.
Pat was a speed reader, the impeccable comprehension. And that lasted all of a couple weeks. And he calls me excitedly. And baseball has just announced they're going to add 2 teams. We need to go after a team in Orlando. And he said, what do you think of that? And I said, well, Pat, I've got to digest it. What do you have in mind? Well, I want you as my partner. I need a finance person that can help structure this that I trust. I said, well, this is going to be a tremendous amount of work. And you just retired. I'm running a company at 100-hour weeks.
Mm-hmm.
We got to be very confident that we have outstanding chance to get a franchise. And of course, Pat, in his normal marketing optimistic way, Jim, what is it you're worried about? Pat, I'm a CPA. I'm a skeptic. I reminded him when the Expos were for sale back in the early 2000s that I and a partner had put the capital together to buy the team and relocate it to Washington, D.C. And Pat was going to leave the Magic and be the president of the team, run the team, because Pat came up in baseball.
Right.
And then it got into a bidding war with some billionaire people that we knew. We put a value on the team that we thought was realistic. At that point, the Orioles owned all the media rights. And thought that was $100 million wild card. And so the bidding goes to 350 million. We just silently drop out.
Right.
And I reminded Pat that we spent hundreds of hours on that initiative. And this is going to be thousands of hours.
Yes.
So, he said, give me your checklist. where are you going to put a stadium, Pat? And we looked at 4 or 5 locations, and and he thumbs down on all of them. And then he calls me excitedly a month later, come by the house. I want to show you something. And he takes me down to this amazing 35.5-acre parcel next to SeaWorld, adjacent to the second largest convention center in the country. A 10-minute short ride to Disney and to the airport. What's this? Jim, this is our stadium site. So you structured a deal to buy it from SeaWorld? How'd you do that, Pat? Oh, Jim, the county owns it. That's who showed it to me. Well, I don't know why this hadn't been developed, Pat. And then he looks at me and says, are we ready to go? It's like, Pat, that's one thing on a list.
Right. There's many more.
So we went through a series of things and lots of research. And the conclusion became very apparent that Orlando had the most compelling case in the country as the next site for baseball. So that's how it started.
Wow. So you mentioned about buying the Montreal Expos, and I've been following them since when they left in 2004, when I was in high school. My question to you is this, and this dawned on me. How come you couldn't have the team in Montreal still?
Well, I think there are a number of factors up there. That stadium essentially was built, for the Olympics in the mid-70s.
Yes.
So I think there were some challenges in keeping that updated. I think there were some concerns. I've heard things mentioned from different players that it was a hassle going in, getting through customs and immigration, taxes. I don't know that so much it was a cultural barrier.
No, not at all.
French-speaking people there, but it just didn't seem to have the level of support that, for example, the Blue Jays get in Toronto. So I think that was a factor. It was interesting to see a team leave the nation's capital. And people ask the question about, well, can Florida have 3 teams? And that's going to be an interesting thing to discuss. So what about proximity? And my comment to media people that raise that is, why do you think baseball went back to Washington, D.C., 38 miles from the Baltimore Orioles? And the answer is very, very clear, because it was the best market in the country that did Major League Baseball. So
that is true.
Now, having said that, there 20 plus years of litigation went on over those media rights. We were aware of it. We didn't follow it closely, but it was sort of as we predicted that was going to be a significant economic and legal issue. Now, in retrospect, if you look at the growth and the valuations of franchises, we erred by not staying in the game. But you look back and say, this is 20 years ago. We were finance people, and our approach is to not overpay for things.
Absolutely.
You control your destiny and your economics when you buy, because you can't necessarily control when you sell.
Yes.
So that's how we looked at it.
Well, and the documentary of the Who Killed the Montreal Expos, and I'll just give a spoiler away. Everyone's like pointing fingers, like Claude Boucher and David Sampson, this, and I'm like, my conclusion, because I'm being very unbiased of this, and I was like, it's not financially feasible. That was my conclusion. It was not financially feasible. You would have like an Elon Musk to bring a team to Montreal with his own pocket. So it's sad, but it's something of that nature, and it brings to another question I have, and I know I'm mixing up a little bit, but I had to ask this: if let's say hypothetically, if a team goes for sale, and I'm wearing this for a reason, I'm wearing this for a reason. Would you ever consider it to buy an MLB franchise and relocate into Orlando?
Oh,
Would
unconditionally. We have said all along that
Mhm,
multiple paths for Orlando to get a franchise. And it
mhm.
would be one of the two expansion slots, or it can be an existing franchise that has challenges that provides an opportunity to be acquired and relocated. So we look at the circumstances and say, we've got 4 or 5 swings at the plate, and we're
Yes.
very, very confident that we're going to connect and have a franchise this decade through one of those paths.
And the reason why I'm saying it is I've ranted and raved about the athletics of how they're portraying this. You don't have to give an opinion on that. I'm the one that'll give the opinion. And how it's messed the fans up to go into a lesser media market and partnering with a company that's eventually going to go bankrupt and getting taxpayer funds and all that. And it's been a whole mess. And this man is paying for all of it from what we've been told. He's paying for the majority of it to build that stadium. Now, is it going to get completed? Who knows? I have no idea. That's a question for a few years from now, and we'll see how that goes. Um, I've always said, and I did an episode about this a while back. If I ever see, an opportunity when it comes to expansion, the ones that are making more noise, and I hate to say it to you, is Portland and Salt Lake City. They have much more noise and much more backing. I hate to say it that way, but I see Orlando as a potential relocation. And if I had the cards right, if I was Rob Manfred, I would put the A's into Orlando because I see your group bringing back the not only the swinging A's tradition, the Philadelphia A's tradition, bringing all that back and making it to what it should be for that organization. I believe you would take full advantage of it, but that's just my take. That's my take. Um, so I know that I get your weekly email, the monthly emails in regards to what you're doing to the community, which I find is wonderful. My question to you is, your last email said that you have a lot coming in 2026. Would you be able to share what those things will be?
Absolutely. So you followed our progress. We're very, very far along. We think much farther along than any other cities that would be vying for a Major League Baseball franchise.
Mhm.
When I say further along, I'm not talking just financing and economics,
Right.
which we are farther along, but I think the overall game plan. I mean, we not only have a site, we think it's the best site in all of sports, frankly.
I agree.
Right in the middle of 80 million tourists this year,
Mhm.
the most visited destination in the Western Hemisphere. But, in terms of design, our game plan, um, for example, we plan to put lighted youth baseball and softball fields in each of the Orange County Commissioner districts because
Wonderful.
we believe a Major League Baseball franchise has the obligation to involve the youth of the community in the right way.
Absolutely.
When I grew up in the 60s, baseball was king.
Yes.
And now you fast forward and you look at all the competing sports that youth face. And frankly, we have to be honest and say baseball has taken a little bit of a back seat. Now, I think there's certain initiatives that have recently been undertaken that are starting to move that needle back. So you've got things like the pitch clock and, you know, having a designated hitter, doing away with the field shifts. All of these things, I guess time will tell if they're successful, but it certainly strikes us that the introduction of the pitch clock's been incredibly successful.
I love it. Be
Yeah.
honest with you.
Yeah, and I have to admit, as a former baseball player, I was the guy on the mound or the guy at bat that probably caused a lot of those delays. I'd step out of the batter's box and tap my spikes to, like I'm knocking dirt off of him to frustrate the pitcher. Or, if I'm pitching, I might shake off 5 signals from the catcher. When he's repeating, I didn't have 7 different pitches. I had maybe 4 different pitches.
Right.
But there's certainly been progress there. But we believe the right way to run a Major League Baseball franchise is to be very actively engaged from the start with the community, with the fans, with government officials, businesses, but especially youth. And so
Absolutely.
that is the approach we're taking, and you're going to see substantive ramping up of those initiatives. So stay tuned to our website.
I will.
And
I will, for sure.
we're going to be expecting you to be changing your green for Orlando baseball very shortly.
Yes, absolutely. I like the logo, by the way, the simple Orlando baseball logo. I really do enjoy that. So I will definitely.
I can't take credit for that. That's Andy Herdlitzka's our chief marketing person. He was Pat Williams' right-hand person, and Andy's an expert. I can remember Pat and I having discussions, and we're talking about what potentially might be a good name for the team. And Pat and I would talk 3, 4, 5 times a week. We typically meet at least once a week, but he might call me at 10:30 or 11 at night. He would know I'd be working, and my wife would say, "That's Pat." And I'm sure when I called Pat, Ruth would say, "Well, that's Jim calling Pat."
Right.
And so I called Pat excitedly one night and said, "Pat, I have it. We're going to be the Orlando Pythons." Just think about that. Invasive species, powerful. They're moving north out of the Everglades. I mean, they're relentless. And you knock the opposing pitcher out, and the python wraps around the pitcher and squeezes him till he starts crying. And Pat sits and listens patiently and says, "Well, Jim, are you concluded?" I said, "Yeah, Pat, what do you think?" He goes, Jim, you're a good finance guy. Why don't you stick with that, big fella? Let me handle the marketing and branding." Yes, sir, Pat. So after
Python
4 calls like that, it's like, let's let these marketing gurus do their thing. I'm going to stay out of that silo.
Yeah, it was funny you mentioned pythons. I actually spoke with a fellow South Africaner. I'm actually partnering with him for his baseball school. And take a wild guess what the name of his organization is called.
Cobra?
The Taipans.
Hey, I get it. Yeah.
And I just love the name. And I was like, why the name? And I didn't even know what a Taipan was.
Most
I'm like,
snake in the world.
yes. And he was like the most aggressive snake in the world too. And that's why we're gonna sneak out the competition. And I'm actually helping him promote his school. Let's just put it that way. He's developing players into an independent level for baseball in South Africa and bringing the game a lot more than meets the eye. And I'm a person that is a mixed mixed ball of a melting pot, let's just say. And we have the World Baseball Classic coming up. And I have 3 of the 4 of my roots in the Classic. You got the United States, you got Puerto Rico, and you got Nicaragua in the Classic. And I'm like, South Africa got disqualified. Well, not disqualified, but they got counted out by Nicaragua in the qualifier. And there's not much noise going in South Africa. So my initiative is I want to be an ambassador toward them and bring more exposure to South Africa, because like you said about competing with other sports, NFL, NBA, NHL, etc., they have that same issue. They have cricket, they have rugby, and they have was it cricket, rugby, and soccer.
Right.
And I would do anything in my power to promote the game through my podcast, speaking to everyone, you guys, and developing those relationships. In regards to Pat Williams, how I discovered Pat Williams was through the announcement of the Orlando Dreamers. I remember him holding the sign. He had his he had the cap and the jersey and all that. But then I got to know his history a lot more, and it was thanks to one of my local teams here in the Carolinas, the Hub City Spartanburgers.
Oh, I've heard the story so many times, and Pat was so fond of his experience with that team and how much he learned, and he had a wonderful mentor there, and I loved hearing him share the details of that over lunch. He never forgot that experience and how helpful it was to him in his career.
And the head guy, the head media guy at the Spartanburgers, Ian, I interviewed him a while back, and he told me about the Pat Williams Day and the honorary jerseys that they're tributing him to. It was called the Spartanburg Pastimes. They announced that not too long ago, and they're doing a Pat Williams Day for that because he did bring such an impact to Spartanburg, South Carolina. And I was gung-ho interested, and hopefully I can go to a game on that one. But yeah, they're doing all that in honor of him. And I don't know if you knew this, but I wanted to address that to you, that a minor league team is full on steam about what impact he did to the Carolinas.
We are familiar with that, and we're absolutely thrilled to see them honoring Pat in that way. We think it's highly appropriate.
Plan to come to a game in Spartanburg?
You don't have to twist my arm to go to a baseball game anyway.
Yes, I agree. And so you guys are finance people, and that's why I love, picking your brain on questions. How was that relationship with the city of Orlando in order to bring baseball to Orlando? Because I know they're doing a huge, massive renovation, and I'm going to get to that because I wanted to talk about that. They're doing a massive renovation towards the Citrus Bowl, Camping World Stadium, and they're going to get a year of football, which is great, and they're going to be the talk of the town. I'm like, all the concerts will be there, all the big sporting events, maybe a Super Bowl. I don't know. What is that relationship like with the city of Orlando?
So it's interesting. If you look at the history of baseball and new stadiums or renovations to stadiums,
yes,
baseball generally likes to see a public-private partnership. They are somewhat adverse to seeing a community privately finance 100% of a stadium initiative. And there are many reasons for that. I mean, first of all, it clearly would set a precedent. So other cities where you might have let's call them gadflies in the media or watchdog groups say, oh, gee, Orlando financed that privately. Why can't Kansas City?
Right.
So the other thing you're seeing is cities and states starting to experience losses of teams over these impasses. I mean,
Yes.
Kansas City Chiefs moving across the state line, leaving Missouri. My home state of Illinois in jeopardy, potentially losing the Bears to Indiana. And so the sports owners of I'm going to say the 4 primary sports leagues understand the importance of public-private partnerships.
Yes.
I think there are other reasons beyond that why it makes sense for it to be a partnership. First of all, there's substantive economic impact.
Yes.
Look, in our case, I had told Pat early on, one of the things we will need to do is commission an independent economic impact study. And he said, why is that needed? And I said, if we're going to be talking with local government officials, they're going to have the right, and I think it's an appropriate right, to say, what is the community, what are the citizens getting in return? An investment. And I use the term investment, not a cost, not an expenditure. It's an investment by local government. And in our case, the economic impact study concluded that we would add 25,000 permanent jobs and create in excess of $40 billion of economic impact for Orange County over 30 years. So as it turns out, because of our theme parks and weather and wonderful business climate and a great place to live, no state income tax, Orlando happens to be the fastest growing city and the fastest growing state in the country. Last year, the tourist development tax, which is essentially the tax on hotel rooms from visitors, in Orange County generated $385 million. Wow. That's how Pat Williams got 2 new Magic Arenas built. By current law, those funds can only be utilized for activities or, let's say, capital projects that promote tourism, sports venues, convention centers, and so forth. Not be used based on current law for general purposes, roads, schools, transportation, and so forth. So we look at it and we say, you do those calculations and throw in the fact that that study also indicated that bringing Major League Baseball to Orlando, playing in our 45,000 capacity dome stadium on our 35.5-acre site right in the middle of the tourist corridor would also generate an additional $26 million a year in tourist development tax. So we're adding to that pot. And so we would say this, we would challenge local government to find a better use of those tourist development taxes than investing it as a partner in a dome baseball stadium that, by the way, will be a 365-day-a-year attraction, not just for 81 home games, or if we also play, 15 spring training games there. This will be a 365-day-a-year attraction. There is no other competing use of those funds that would remotely approach the return on investment for Orlando, for Orange County, for the citizens. And not financed at all with local taxpayer money. This is tourist money.
Correct.
Now, if you're a tourist coming to Orlando, and I can say this from personal experience, from having come down and visited in the early and mid 90s, it's the main reason I ended up in Orlando. I wanted to go see a baseball game. I didn't want to spend every waking minute at a theme park.
Mm.
I'll make the long trek over to Tropicana Field. That's 3 hours to drive over, and be in your seat at the Trop for a night game during the week. 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
But I did that. And I think if you were to ask most tourists, how would you like to see that money spent? I think a very significant percentage of them would say, well, we'd certainly rather see it spent on baseball and bringing baseball here, 5 minutes from us or 10 minutes from us than other units. So we also, there was also a poll conducted 3 or 4 years back by the Orlando Business Journal asking local citizens to vote on how they would like to see the tourist development tax used. And Orlando baseball was by far the overwhelming favorite. There wasn't even a close second. So it's undeniable that that is the wisest use of those tourist tax dollars. And so we are confident that ultimately Orange County will be an appropriate strategic partner in the construction of our 45,000 capacity dome stadium.
1,000%. And you mentioned 3-hour drive. I said that's that's if it's clear.
That's assuming no wrecks. So I've made that trip many times. When I first moved down here 28 years ago, I went to a lot of Rays games, and it became just such a, either going over or coming back inevitably, the games I would choose, there would be a wreck, and I'd be pulling off. I got to know all the back ways to, to cut through the rural areas to get back to Orlando. But, everybody looks at it, and on the surface, you'll have a lot of the media people say, oh gosh, it's close proximity. Have you driven it? Have you actually driven from, downtown to a game during the week, a night game during the week?
Yep.
You leave at 4:00. You're going to be fortunate to catch the opening pitch, at 7:05. Correct.
And I used to work in the city of Tampa, and I remember one night a season ticket holder that worked with me was giving away tickets. I was the first to say yes. And we left, if I remember correctly, we left like around 5. We didn't make it till first pitch at 7. And we were in the Dale Mabry area. And we had to make the bridge drive to St. Petersburg. And it was rush hour. It was so much fun. Yeah, good memories. 2 more questions, and I'll let you go. I don't want to take too much of your time. One of the projects I'm going to be doing in the future is the story of Tinker Field and what happened, which you and me know what happened to it. And with this giving back to the community, especially like building the baseball fields for the youth, I had a random idea. Now, you mentioned the Orlando Business Journal, and there was an article that pulled up not too long ago that I was like gung-ho about, that the city of Orlando wants to redevelop the area, like make it into a mixed-use property. And, like for those that don't know, mixed-use development, restaurants, bars, condos, hotels, etc., restaurants. And one of the things I had a random idea of is because I know I was one of the people that was against demolishing Tinker Field, even though it was decrepit. It was still a national historic place, pretty much. It was deemed as that, but still got demolished. But in retrospect, they still honored that area with a plaza. Wonderful. My question to you is this. Have you ever considered building a minor league, not minor league, hear me out, a little league field in that specific site for little leaguers to play on that same spot that Pete Rose played in? A lot of the Minnesota Twins played. A lot of minor leaguers from the Tampa Bay Rays played. Would you ever consider that if the opportunity came up?
Well, that's an interesting point you make. We're all about preserving the history and the grandiose nature of historical baseball. And we would leave it to the commissioners in each of these districts as to where they feel it would be appropriate to place the youth baseball and softball fields. Now, nothing would please us more, frankly, than being able to build a youth field near the site of Tinker Field and
Yes.
honoring the legacy of that. Because, you know, as a little kid, the very first thing I would do, now this is when people still read newspapers, and by the way, still like to read a newspaper, okay? I'd get up and look at the box scores, the very first thing I would do. And so we think there's a lot of relevance to honoring that type of situation, because if you look at Central Florida, baseball is woven into the fabric of this area. You had so many greats that started their careers or early in their careers, had Orlando be part of that. Or Central Florida. I mean, Jackie Robinson, Hank Aaron, Babe Ruth, Stan.
We can even go to the early 1900s.
Joe DiMaggio. I mean, you know, these were people growing up, and even youth today. Every youth that plays baseball sure knows who Babe Ruth was. They sure know who Hank Aaron was, and Joe DiMaggio. And so we think it would be wonderful if there was a way to honor that legacy of Tinker Field. And if you talk with the people, I mean, Barry Larkin is a perfect example, okay? Barry was from Cincinnati, spent his whole career with the Reds.
Mm-hmm.
Barry ended up adopting Orlando as his second home. And the reason he did that was the wonderful experience he had playing spring training in the Grapefruit League. And so many of these iconic Hall of Famers got that opportunity, got that exposure to Central Florida. And we think it would be amazing to honor the legacy of Tinker Field in some way that's appropriate.
Oh, that's music to my ears. I live in the city of Greenville, and I did not know a lot of the history back then about it. And they opened a Little League field, like a Little League World Series regulated field called Mayberry Park. I did not know anything about it. And someone explained to me that it was a segregated ball field for the black kids playing in Sterling High School. And they were adjacent to Meadowbrook Park, which was a minor league facility for, I don't remember what team. It was like a bunch of affiliates, like the Mets and the Braves and all that. And it was in an at-risk area. It had a shooting range, and wild dogs are around. And they did, for the last, I would say, 8 years, they started the Unity Park project. And they made the Meadowbrook Park area Unity Park. You know, bunch of splash pads, playgrounds, walking trails. It's amazing. I take my daughter there all the time. And then when they added Mayberry Park and the Freedom Tower, which I think that's what it's called, the Freedom Tower, they made it into something unbelievable. And I give the city of Greenville huge props. And that's why I thought of that with you guys in Orlando, because anytime that I see an abandoned stadium, which I do see plenty of in different walks of life, it bothers me because you're wiping away the legacy. And I'm one that, even though I'm upset with MLB in their decisions, I still love the game. I still love the game baseball. I love going to a baseball game because I feel at peace. Simple as that. Jim, thank you so much for being on my show. This is a wonderful conversation. I'm still gung-ho on Orlando getting a team, 1,000%. Stay on the call real quick. I just had to ask one last question, but it's going to be off topic, offline. But I do appreciate you being on the show. Thank you so much for being there.
The opportunity, Frankie, and I look forward to staying in touch.
We will definitely stay in touch. Yes, we'll keep in touch on every level. And if you need me to be a spokesperson, let me know.
So appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for watching and listening to Stadium BS. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow, and give a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform.